One of the biggest problems that a lot of entrepreneurs have is that they do almost all how-to content, but we still need how-to content. The problem is that most people think how-to content is step-by-step tutorials, and it doesn't have to be. And in this episode, we're going to break down different styles of how-to content that create more engagement. So keep listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about different ways that you can create educational content. So we have talked very heavily against doing endless amounts of how-to educational videos. And that's kind of been an angle we've used in our messaging for a while. And one of the reasons why is because it's a really big belief that we have inside of our company. Now, again, we will find people that have succeeded with how-to content over and over and over again, people that have succeeded with using a ton of keywords and things like that. But I would always argue the reason why those people succeed isn't because they had the best tutorials or steps or information. And one of the reasons why we go against how-to content all the time, and it's not that we go against how-to content all the time, it's that we want to lower the ratio of how-to educational content because what happens is you start to blend in with everyone else, meaning that people aren't following you because you give out the best steps or the best tutorials or the best information. There's something deeper. There's something else invisible going on. And this is what we talk about inside our video series, The Content Revolution. Obviously, this is a heavy focus inside the Video 4X program. And we talk about the content circle of death. And what the content circle of death is basically your niche, and your niche is the circle. And when you give out information, you want to be the expert. Well, it's great when you have no competition because you're the only one talking, right? And this is why there has been an industry norm formed around how-to content for the longest time. Because a lot of the gurus and people that are teaching it, that's what they did. And so they want to teach what they did. Now, a lot of them got started 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or even longer years ago when there weren't a lot of experts online teaching. So when we go to teach their steps, then they're one of just a few. Well, then, yeah, they're going to get traction. But when there starts to become more and more and more and more experts, those steps start to blend in with everyone else. And if you are succeeding with how-to content, it's because there's invisible things going on. Maybe you revealed a belief that you had and they believe the same thing, so you form a connection. Maybe you shared an identity that you have that they have also, and that formed a connection. And what I mean by that is maybe in one of the how-to videos you show, like you have a son or a daughter and they came on screen, and then all of a sudden the people are also parents, and on a subconscious level they form some kind of connection, and they like you over the other experts because you're a parent and they're a parent too. And this is why we talk so heavily about core values, and we talk so heavily about identities and beliefs and incorporating that into your messaging, because that's where the deep psychological connections with your audience are actually formed, whether people realize it or not. A lot of it happens on a subconscious level where a belief is revealed, an identity is revealed, a core value is revealed. And if the audience has the same core value, belief, or identity, well, a connection is formed. And we want to be very careful with being very aggressive with how-to content because, again, we just continue to say the same thing. Yes, I understand you guys have a skill, you have a zone of genius, but you're not the only one in this world with a skill or zone of genius. You're just not. And when you teach things, the same things that your competition is teaching, you blend in. So right now, like I teach messaging, and I teach kind of the psychology of it, but I'm not the only person who talks about beliefs, and I'm not the only person who talks about core values and identity. I'm not the only person who talks about messaging. The way I talk about it might be a little bit different than most because I'm aware of all of this stuff going on. So I'm very careful and strategic with how I communicate. But relatively, if you're going to be giving out tutorials and steps, it's going to be the same information as most of your competitors. At least 70%, is generally going to be the same. And then when you have one competitor, two competitor, three competitor, four competitor, five competitors, 10 competitors all going after one niche, you're stuck inside that content circle of death. You're stuck inside that niche, basically fighting for a piece of the pie. And when you have 10 experts giving out relatively the same information, the same steps, the audience has to figure out who they're going to follow and why they're going to follow it. And usually this will happen on a subconscious level. Usually what happens is they start to recognize this person believes the same things as me, has the same values as me. They stand up for the same things that I stand up for, a lot of that type of stuff. Okay. And so the first step of overcoming this is first recognizing we have to start thinking beyond just tutorial-based content, tutorial-based information. We still want it, but we want to pull back the reins so it's not 70% or it's not 100%, it's not 80%, it's not even 70%. I would say if you're in the range of 50 to 60, maybe 70% of your content being how-to, probably a good range. I would tell most people to start off at 50%. Now, if you want to listen to our video series that's coming out in March, you can get on the wait list. We'll put a link around this video. You can do that. We'll go really deep inside of this. But one of the things I want to talk to you about today is even looking beyond the how-to content that you're familiar with. So obviously we talk about things like thought reversals and connections. And yes, there are different elements that we need and different types of content we need. But this podcast today is not dedicated to those. Today's podcast is dedicated to the how-to content, and you'll see why in a second. But if you are interested in listening, what other elements you need, just go through our podcast, go look through past episodes. We talk about how to create $1 million messaging and what elements you need and why we don't want all education. But I want to introduce you guys to a new concept. And yes, our Video 4X students should be aware of this. If you are a Video 4X student, you should be pretty aware of this, of what I'm about to reveal to you. But for those of you who are not Video 4X members, this is something I haven't shared publicly yet. This is probably the first time. There are different ways to do how-to and educational content other than just step-by-step tutorial-based things, right? So like we look at Gary Vaynerchuk, and he does give out information, right? Like, he does give out information, and he does show things to you guys and teach you guys things. And he might be doing a talk and teaching a really less important lesson, but there's usually no steps. There's usually no tutorials. He's doing other things. When we look at Simon Sinek, or look at any of his books, there's not really step-by-step stuff, like go look at any of his videos. It's how to motivate your employees or something like that. He's not going to go, okay, step 1 is this, step 2 is this, step 3 is this. He's doing something else. There's something else going on in which he's doing. When the way he writes his book is he gives out a lot of valuable information, but what he's doing is educating through shifting of perspectives. He's giving you a new way to look at things, and that's where thought reversals really come in. But what I want to do is talk about 3 different ways and give you guys 3 actionable things that you could probably even just try today to start to educate and give out that how-to information without boring step-by-step stuff that all your competitors are going to do. So with that said, number 1 way that you guys can still teach and add value and give out information without it being a boring step-by-step thing is by telling stories. And we can look at almost any TED Talk out there. I think people would all agree that TED Talk gives out great information. They have great speakers all giving you different ways to think about stuff, and they give you information on how to do something. But almost every single one of them incorporates some kind of story. And what they're doing is they're giving you their lessons. They're telling you the story in which a lesson was learned, aka how to actually do something. And story, and this is a very surface level way to look at story. Story has so many benefits. It has everything to do with connections and resonating and getting people to engage and pulling people in. There's so much that story can do. But just from an educational standpoint, why can't you just title a video? An example for me would be titling the video. I could title a video, how to motivate your team. And I could just tell a story where I actually messed up motivating my team, so they're learning what not to do, which some could argue is just as important. And then I transitioned the story to, so here's what I did. I started to do this and people started to respond this way. And then I started to feel this, and here's how the story went. And while I reveal the story, I'm showing the highs of the emotions and I'm pulling people in and I'm relating it back to them. And then I show them how I finally learned the lesson. And I showed them how to motivate their team by telling a story. And kind of the 1, 2, 3 punch when telling a story in the form of, or the objective of educating, is to tell them what you did in that story, why you did it, and then the result you got. And so when you go to tell the story, I always like to tell the story of, here's how I messed up. I'm going to teach you guys how to motivate your team. Here's how I learned this, here's what I did. I went through the story and we had this experience, and here's what I did. Here's why I did it. Here's why I thought this would have worked. Here's the result I got. So I changed it. And then I go back into, here's what I did. Here's what I did to change it. Here's what I did. And here's what I learned. And here's why I made those changes. And here's why I did what I did. And then the result is this thing where I motivated our team and we got these types of results. So you can see that I like to go into what went wrong and then what actually worked. But on both sides of those, on both parts, I'm using that 1, 2, 3 punch. What did I do? Why did I do it? And what was the result I got? And you start to tell this story, and you let the story be the education. And you can still title it how to do X, Y, and Z and how to do whatever. But you look at some of the best speakers, the best thought leaders. Almost all TED Talks are a story-based education type of content. And so that's number 1, is to start playing around with it. And guys, this is something that you could do on a live stream today. You could send it out in an email tomorrow. You can pop open your phone and do a live on Instagram or a story or an IGTV, or just record something on your phone and then post it online. Just give it a try. And it's a different way to teach other than just going step by step by step and saying the same thing as everyone else. And the reason why I love this is it's so unique. The story is unique to you. This is a way to create an educational piece of content that your competition can't compete against, because it's your unique story. And everything we talk about is how to be unique. How do we communicate differently? How do we have a unique solution? How do we stand out over everyone else? How do we go against the grain? And that's why I love story. Now, the second way to educate, and there's more than just the 2 or 3 I'm going to give you guys today, but the second one is breaking down examples. And we've done a few of these types of videos. So if you look at our Instagram or YouTube, you'll see us breaking down Gary Vaynerchuk's video and revealing the messaging that he's using. What type of techniques is he using? And what we're doing is we're saying, here's all the stuff that we teach, and here's Gary Vaynerchuk actually doing it. And we're going to break down what he's doing, why he's doing it, using the tools that we teach you to do. Now, there's so many benefits to doing this, and I do have to give credit where credit's due. This is an idea Matt brought to us and incorporated into the company, and I freaking love it because there's so many benefits to this style of content that I didn't even see, which is there's just a lot of social proof in what you do for people too. So when I break down someone's video like Gary Vaynerchuk, who has a lot of clout, and I break down what he's doing, showing the tools that we teach, it brings a lot more credibility to what we teach because they see it live in action. They see someone getting massive results with it. So this is why I love breaking down examples. So you don't need to title it how to do X, Y, and Z unless you want to, but you could even just say breaking down Simon Sinek's or Gary Vaynerchuk's messaging techniques or something like that. You can do it in a how-to format. So we did a podcast episode titled how to use the #1 messaging technique or something along those lines. And all I did was I read Simon Sinek's book and said, here's where he's backing it up. Here's where he's using a counterexample. Here's where he's doing X, Y, and Z. These are all the messaging tools that we teach inside of our program, and we teach in our free content as well. But I'm breaking down something well-known by someone who is well-known, showing how what we teach is being used in reality, in the world. So this can be you guys breaking down a video. This could be you breaking down a book, a magazine. You guys could do these in videos, in emails, in video content. You can do them anywhere. And so the examples we've done is we found really powerful videos that show our messaging techniques being used, and we just broke it down. We played the video, we paused it, we said, okay, here's what's happening, here's what he's doing, here's why he's doing it, moved on, did another one. We had, a 10-minute video breaking down Gary Vaynerchuk's video. I also just read a book on a podcast. I read Simon Sinek's book. I said, here's one page out of Simon Sinek's book, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here's what's happening. Here's why he said this. Here's why he did this. Here's what he did, why he was using this here, this. And I just broke it down. So again, guys, this could be a magazine, an audio clip, a video, whatever you want it to be. Now, I will say, I'm not a lawyer, so you'd want to be very careful and make sure you're double checking with whose content you can use in your form of content. That's my disclaimer, because I don't know the laws in which you're going to be using this technique. So definitely make sure you're checking in on the legal use of other people's content inside of your content. But even if you just read a book, or you even combined both of them and said, here's a story of me reading Simon Sinek's book, and he said something along these lines, and he was using this technique there, that should be totally fine. But again, check with a lawyer on all those things. Now, the last and final type of how-to content that you can do is kind of like what I call, it's not a vlog, but it's kind of like a vlogging how-to video. Gary Vaynerchuk is very good with this style of content, where it's kind of like behind the scenes or a vlog, but you're educating. And one of our students did a great job of this, and she teaches people how to start a brand, like a clothing brand. And the video was titled something along the lines of like how to pick out the best material. And so she had someone with the camera follow her into a material shop, and she's going through, here's how I pick out material. So she's already doing things that she would have done already. And she's like, so I'm looking at this and I'm looking at that. But here's the thing, there's no step-by-step. There's no like, okay, the first step that you want to do is look for material that da-da-da-da-da, and then look for da-da-da-da-da. What you did, or what she did, is she just walked in, went through her normal buying process of material, and just spoke to the camera as what her thought process was out loud. Okay, now I'm doing this, and here's the things that you want to keep in mind, and da-da-da-da. Okay, now I'm going to buy it. Okay, now I'm cutting it. Now I'm measuring it. And then she titles the video, How to Do X, Y, and Z. It's a much more engaging and entertaining way to still teach. Your competition isn't going to do that because they're so focused on step-by-step and tutorials and all of that stuff. But it's a great way to still educate, to entertain, to reveal things about yourself. That's what I love about these styles of content, is that they allow you to reveal identities or beliefs or core values. Like if she had her daughter with her, like that's revealing an identity. She's a mother. She gets to reveal that because, maybe her daughter came with her. She's a mom, so maybe she's going to appeal more to and build a deeper connection with mom entrepreneurs. So that's why I love that style of content. So just to kind of recap, we have story. You can tell stories to still educate, to teach those lessons. And what I like to do is talk about what went wrong first, and then what went right, and then use the three-step process to telling it would be, what did you do? Why did you do it? And then the result you got. So talk about what went wrong. What did you do? Why did you do it? And what's the bad result that you got? And then how did you fix it? What did you do? What did you do? Why did you do it? And what is the result? Number 2, the second thing you can do is break down examples. Find people or proof of people doing what you teach, and then break down what they're doing so that people can see it live in action. And then it gives social proof that these well-known people or these big books or these big videos with a lot of views or whatever it is are actually using the techniques that you teach. Gives you some social proof and credibility. And then the last one is like what I call blogging or behind the scenes how-to content, where if you do things on a daily basis and your audience wants to know what you do and how to do it, well, why not just throw a camera up and record yourself doing it, speaking to the camera, and that's like a vlog or behind the scenes style of you actually doing it live, showing them without a boring step-by-step talking head video. Okay. So again, the whole point of this episode is to remind you, we don't want to do how-to content 100% of the time. Some companies will thrive with it or not, doing more, and some will with less. But what we want to do is we want to focus on the deeper, invisible things going on. Again, for all you 4Xers out there, you know very well what I'm talking about. But we do want to focus on things like connection and thought reversal and shifting perspective and connection, identity, core values, and belief, and blend it all together to create a messaging ecosystem. And we want about 50 to maybe 60, 70% of our content being educational, but educational doesn't mean step-by-step. Educational content can be delivered in multiple different ways, and I just gave you guys 3 on this podcast episode. Now, we do have a video series coming out in February, March of 2021. So if you are listening to this episode before February, March of 2021, make sure you are clicking on the link around this video and getting on the wait list that we will have up so that you can learn more about this. What are the other types of videos that you can do? What's the other type of content you can do? We're going all out for this video series, and you guys absolutely need to be there. And check it out if anything I said today is of interest to you and you want to fix your messaging, your content. So that's it for this episode. If you have not done so already, feel free to head over to iTunes, leave us a review. I'd be so grateful for that. And we'll see you guys on another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.